finish off these particles, I'm going to jump into the render tree and assign the sparks the same color and the same tuned painted host that are currently being used by my lasers. So I'm going to switch the colors to kind of a more orange-yellow sort of color, which is kind of what I already have. I could also enable some ambience for the particles to boost their illumination, maybe not multiply them by quite so much. As far as the highlights go, I'll add a touch of blue into the highlights and a touch of orangey red into the rim lights, if I manage to be fortunate enough to catch them at such a glancing blow. So when I draw the render region now, I'll have the particles shaded in the color that I'm looking for. So there's not a whole heck of a lot of light on these particles at the moment. So one of the things I could do to illuminate them is just bring in an extra light. I just need to make sure that light's working for me. We'll get a render going there again. I may need to increase the size of these particles, so I'll just play that by ear. And the color, I can actually see the color being pulled, but it looks like I'm going to need to work on that a little bit more. So if I jump back into the render tree, it could also be the tune paint and host that I'm using. I'm going to try a very quick way of determining whether or not it's the particles or the shading. If I apply a constant node, I'll just use constant yellow. Let's move forward in time a little bit and try a little render region here and see what colors we end up with. So you can see that it's actually the shader that was causing us the problem there. So that's not a big deal. I'm just going to jump back into the render tree or the ice tree for these particles. And I'm going to increase their size in the spawn on collision property page. So let's go to a size of 1. And in the generate strand trails, if I increase the size of the strands, let's say to a size of 3, I'll have to resimulate here, so I'll get rid of my render region and play back to about frame 43. You can see that we get strands that are a little more prominent. So I could compensate by taking down the strand length, but I think you get the general idea. If I was to take down the number of strand segments, we'll have much shorter strands. And of course this can all be blurred. So it really looks like it was the combination of all the different shaders in the tune paint and host that was causing the problem. So let's see, if I take down the multiply, that might have had something to do with it, the ambience. The highlights and the rim lights should have been okay, so let's just plug this back in here and have a look. And as I thought, that's exactly what it was. The multiply on the tune paint and host was just darkening all of my particles. So now at least I have some variety in the color of my particles. We can also control the shape of these particles if you want. Through the ice tree, we can control the size based on age. So this is the size profile. So if I want the particles to be thicker upon interacting with the mech and thinner towards the edges, sort of like spikes, we could even improvise and increase this amount of contrast. Now that's going to make for some fairly thick particles. So let's see what we have here. I'll resimulate to frame 43. and it actually doesn't seem to make too big of a difference. So I think I might just leave things there. So if I was to increase the strand size multiplier some more, I might be able to see that that change. So let's try this one more time, and then we can settle on our actual render. Okay, so a little thicker yet. And I could probably even increase the gravity just for a bit more effect. So you can see now that most of the particles are trending downwards. Okay, so I think at this point we can break the scene up into renders, or we can render as is. And in this example, I'm just going to render as is. So I'm going to unhide all of the different layers that I've got. So if I go into my cartridge ejection layer, and I point it towards the appropriate model, the appropriate action, so in the Mulcore reference model, Alt-0 will pull in the appropriate get data, the trigger that we were using to control our rate. And make sure we do the same thing in our muzzle flash. So actually, let me copy that. I'll refresh and paste in the action clip weight. Okay, so we're getting everything working out pretty nicely. Everything's looking pretty good. So let's get a render underway then and see how this works.